Good morning, good afternoon, Power Hitters, Solar Warrior Tribe, and all friends of Power. Today is February 21st, 2023. It is our Tuesday 10 a.m. training. My name is Jarrett McAllister, your mentor and co-host, alongside Mr. Jonathan Brunasso, Mr. Tom Cotter. What's up, gentlemen? How are you?
Doing great. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Another great day. Training today. Looking forward to it.
It should be a good one. We have a smorgasbord of topics. Going to have like kind of an open forum discussion, which will be good. As Tom mentioned, people like these trainings, so we'll go over quite a bit of stuff. Let's jump into success stories like we do every single week. If you have a success story, go ahead, raise your hand. I'll call on you. We're just going to run through 2 or 3 and then jump right into the training. So if anyone has one that they would like to share, feel free, raise your hand in the chat.
Yeah.
Cynthia, just talking about you.
What's up, guys? Only good stuff, right?
Always. I don't even know what bad we could say about you. So yeah.
Right. Just wanted to share, it's been my biggest January. And honestly, it's just been so busy for me, like personal life, that I haven't even tried. It's just people coming to me from creating those funnels in the past. And because of NEM 3.0, it's shaping up to be my biggest January I've ever had. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And I'm just super grateful for what I've learned from my mentors like Jonathan Brunasso and really everyone on the Power platform. I take a little from everyone. So that's it for me.
Awesome, Cynthia. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I'm sure not just you, but I feel like we're all having our best winter of our solar careers right now, right? I mean, absolutely crushing it in January. February is no different. And it's just the heat's just getting turned up every day, every week. Jonathan just showed on the screen, if you guys aren't using the NEM 3.0 toolkit that's in your Power back office, that Power spent the time, the money, the resources to put together for you guys to share on social media, to send to your prospective clients, share on your clients that are sitting on the fence, the ones that you laid out a proposal tool but haven't, pulled the trigger yet. Take advantage of the marketing tools that Power provides for us. Mr. Bonilla, I see your hand raised. What's up, brother?
Hey, Jared. Good morning. Morning, Jonathan.
Morning.
And everyone else. I just wanted to share and congratulate Ruby and Miguel Amaya. They're both EXP realtors, and they just started their solar project on their own home. So they're going to make 50% of the commission. But I wanted to share how I introduced them to the platform. I've been reaching out to this couple early last year on their Instagram, just talking about Power, how it's similar to EXP's model. And I invited them both to one of my installations in Rancho Cucamonga last year in September. They saw the whole process. They asked questions. They still did nothing with the with the opportunity of Power, but I kept following up. And then they attended JC's Super Saturday event that we had 2 weeks ago, and they finally came. Well, they've been signed up, but they started seeing their clients and their neighbors going solar. So they said, you know what, we need to do something about it. So they finally went all in with Power, and their first project is their home. So yes, keep following up with everyone you're talking to, either the opportunity or solar for their house.
That's it.
Gold is in the follow-up. Fortune's in the follow-up. Great job, Anthony. Love that. All right, we're going to go Ramsey, Lorenzo. I'm going to share one, and then we're going to move on. Ramsey, Mr. Clark, my man. How are you, brother?
Dude, I'm amazing. The golden follow-up. I like that. Quick one for me. I just went on a little 20-minute blitz, and I got 5 confirmed realtors for tomorrow. So I'm stoked about that. And I'm going to keep knocking them out and just spread that love, good vibes, positivity, and just realistically, I mean, why wouldn't they want to come on? So if you have that attitude and you kind of lead with that vibe, people are attracted to that. So that's my win.
Love it, Ramsey. Keep on plunging away, brother.
Hey, Ramsey,
Yes.
how was the Florida in-person events real quickly? I think you spoke on stage. What was the energy like?
Oh, it was incredible. Everyone was so supportive. We networked. We're really helping each other out. There's no competition because we're all on the same team, right? We're on the Powur team. So that's the beauty of this platform, is that it doesn't matter whose lineage you're under. We're all here to support each other. And it was a beautiful experience. So I recommend everyone make it out to a live in-person event, because that's where a lot of people's lives change, because you feel that energy.
Woo! Love it.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Lorenzo, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's happening? Hey, Ramsey, you're my hero, my man. I love your energy, your spirit, brother. It's very contagious. But quick shout out to Jonathan Brunasso for tagging me as a mentor on I think it was like a $10 or $12 million house that we closed on here recently. But yeah, man, it just goes to show you, we got to work together as a team. We were able to close on it, and I can't wait to see the final install. And I'm sure you'll see Brunasso with this camera and taking a nice, cool video. Make sure you tune in.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorenzo. Good teamwork there for sure. There was a $10 million house on an island in Huntington Beach that I knew Lorenzo's the man. This guy knows everyone in Orange County and Newport. And hopefully we get this guy's Laguna Beach house as well. So yeah, good stuff, Lorenzo. Thank you.
Jonathan, if you have any other of those, my birthday is like a week away.
I'll keep that in mind.
I was just going to say, look at Mr. Brunasso leveraging the Powur platform, right? Tagging a mentor, 50-50 split. Love it. And then real quick, before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to my man, Reggie Bowers. I've worked with this man in the past. He checked out Powur a couple of years ago, went off and became like this Ronin solar warrior, working by himself, solo, no team. And then recently just reached out to me and said, hey, I love what you guys are doing. Love that 30-year warranty. Reggie, I see you on the call, brother.
He had some echo in the background. I think he was trying to say something.
Reggie, go ahead. You got something you want to share? You're muted.
Let's unmute one more time.
Okay, unmute him. Oh. Reggie, you're muted. If you can unmute yourself, you can say something. You got to hit the unmute button. All right. Anyways, shout out to my man Reggie, though. Welcome to the team, bro. We're happy to have you.
Nice, nice. All right, cool. Well, let's keep it rolling, guys.
Sorry about that, guys. Yes, sorry about that. I had some technical issues, but Jarrett, I was on the sideline watching him, and he's very inspirational. I got a chance to look at this proposal that was posted on YouTube, and I found like several holes that was missing in the current company I was with, another platform that allowed me to be the Ronin that I am, Masterless Samurai, that is. And I just had an epiphany, like I worked really hard last year, made really good money, but it's not really sustainable for me this year, me having my daughter full time. So I connected Jarrett. I said, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I want to start on creating a team, getting ambassadors on board. And I still want to sell, but this way I want to do something, create something that's more sustainable with the right team. And he showed me what my options were, and I pulled the trigger. So I'm glad to be here. Jarrett's a good guy. We go back to ADT. And thank you guys.
Boom.
Thank you for reporting all your successes and sharing all your secrets too. That's a hard thing to do when you're with the team. Like it's hard to pick people's brains or even pick up little tools and tricks of the trade so that we can all be successful. So I love it.
Absolutely, brother. Well, hey, we love you being here, man. And we all just lift each other up, man. So there's plenty of success. Enough
I got
power
my
for
first
everyone.
ambassador yesterday. Yeah, I got my first ambassador yesterday, so I'm one step closer to my goal in creating a team, and I'm almost done with the tier 1 testing, and that's it.
Great job, Reggie.
Yeah,
Cool,
I think I got compliance left, and I'm done with tier
1.
Get it.
Right on. All right. Well, hey, thanks everyone for sharing your successes. Let's move on to Tom's quote of the day or of the week, shall we? What do you got for us, brother?
Our contribution. So let's talk about contribution. It's kind of remarkable. It's what separates the average from the extraordinary, the mediocre from the exceptional, and the good from the great. Ron Maurer, who I had the pleasure of hanging out with at our recent leadership summit in Carlsbad, sent me a quote from John Glenn this morning that reminded me of this. So the quote is, "We're more fulfilled when we're involved in something bigger than ourselves." So we are wired to contribute. It's in our DNA, it's in our soul. When we give, when we serve, when we contribute to something bigger than ourselves, we tap into a level of fulfillment that can't be found in material possession or personal achievement. And when we rely solely on ourselves and focus on ourselves, we get a bit disconnected from the world around us and we lose sight of purpose, passion, drive. But when we involve ourselves in something bigger than ourselves, we become a part of a greater whole. We feel connected, we feel purposeful, we feel fulfilled. And the beauty of it all is that that something bigger than ourselves can come in many different forms. It can be a cause, like fixing our environment, a movement like rooftop solar, a company like Powur, a team like Power Hitters or Solar Warrior Tribe. It can be anything that allows us to contribute, to make a difference, to impact the world in a positive way. So my little challenge for each of you today is to get a little perspective, to look beyond yourself and choose to believe that you can contribute. Find something that inspires you, that speaks to your heart, calls you to action. Get involved, give your time, your energy, your resources, and watch as your life transforms in ways that you never thought possible. For it is through giving that we actually receive. And it's in contributing to something bigger than ourselves that we find true fulfillment. Back to you, Jarrett and Jonathan.
Man, I love that.
By the way, almost everything that I just said was written by ChatGPT. So there you go.
Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Hey, well, ChatGPT ain't lying. It's so true. I've always just been a true believer of giver's gain, right? Giving yourself. The more, when you take the focus off yourself and say, how can I serve others? And how can I help everyone else around me? By osmosis, I mean, naturally, it's going to lift you up as well. And that is just so powerful here at Powur, with the ability, with that mindset. We have so many tremendous leaders that are just willing to give themselves and, raise the tide of all the ships here. So incredible quote, ChatGPT, and great job, Tom, reading it. That's incredible. Good stuff, brother. Thank you for sharing.
Nice. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jarrett. I just have one quick thing here. Take a screenshot of this or watch this recording again later. Tons and tons of trainings all day long, Powur calendar. We got market expansion meetings. We got a virtual convention coming up. Like Ramsey said, he's inviting real estate and mortgage pros to tomorrow night's Zoom. So go to Powur calendar right now, invite home services industry to tonight's Zoom, invite real estate mortgage to tomorrow's Zoom. This is how you build your business. This is how you get leads. This is how you get passive residual income. Virtual convention, March 3rd and 4th, 2 days. It's free with your membership. And then a lot of us will be in Salt Lake City, SolarCon, an industry event where Powur is a major sponsor and Jonathan Budd will be speaking. So you can go get your tickets for SolarCon. And I believe the 40% off code is the highest one that we have right now. There's a few codes floating around. All right. With that said, we're going to get into today's training and we're going to do Q&A towards the end. These will be recorded segments so that we can save them and share them later. So let's go ahead and get into this. And I'll kick things off. And Jarrett or Tom, if you guys have things to add, please let me know here. All right. So we want to talk about ground mounts. It's a very common question that comes up. A lot of people ask, what should I know about ground mounts? So this video is for you. When it comes to ground mounts, you definitely want to include the mounting adder. So I'm going to give you an example right now and show you where you can find that mounting adder. That obviously increases the price, and we're going to show you why. And then there is trenching. So whether it's dirt trenching, concrete trenching, a lot more expensive, rock formation trenching, you have to keep in mind trenching, there's a certain amount of distance, feet from the main electrical panel, right? So if this solar system is 100 feet away from their electrical panel, you might have to use thicker wires. If it's 200 to 300 feet away, that's really kind of like the maximum distance. You really don't want it farther than that. Otherwise, again, you will have to use thicker wires that are more expensive. So the distance from the electrical panel is pretty important. So let's go ahead and go to an example here. Here's a solo proposal. And let's start from the beginning. I uploaded a picture of this person's house, and I drew a red square where I wanted the ground mount. And I uploaded that in Powur's back office under assets. And what do you know? I have a proposal with solar panels in that area. Now, some of you may ask, like, well, how did you know that that's their property? The trick that I do to know that is twofold. I'll go to Google, and generally you can see this line here. That's the property line. And Redfin actually shows it a little bit better. So if you notice, that line was right above this, looks like a concrete wash or something. So I knew that if I hit the 3D button, well, look at that, it's a nice south-facing piece of property there. Another trick I do is I go to Redfin. And for those of you that are really savvy, a circular ending there on the roof. Oops. If anyone wants to type in the chat what type of roof they think that is, you'll understand the reason why I offered them a ground mount. And the last solar guy did not offer a ground mount. So if you go down here on Redfin, you see a map. And if you notice, it has a nice, pretty blue outline of the property. And if I hit satellite, generally this is their property line. So I knew that we had some ground to work with. And as I mentioned, did anyone type into the chat what type of roof material this is?
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm going to take a stab at it. Is it clay tile?
This is stone-coated Decra metal tiles. It is metal. Sometimes there's no plywood underneath. You would have to do a comp out, recessed, custom inlay. So for all those reasons why, I suggested the ground. Now you always want to go into adders and mounting adders and make sure to scroll to the bottom on a computer or desktop and click ground mount. In some states, the ground mount may include some trenching. In California, it does not include trenching. Now, whether you go to the property on site or whether you use this not so fancy tool here, I don't know if you guys can see this. In the bottom right of my screen, there's like a 20 feet little marker there. It's like an inch long, right? So 20 feet. So if I were to go from the very bottom of the hill, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 times 20 feet, ballpark it or use a tool or go on site or just put in an estimate. But I just estimate with Google's little.
Hey, Jonathan, at the bottom of that hill, right click where you think your ground mount is and measure distance. So click your point and then click another point up by the house.
Dang, Tom, 95 feet.
You beat me to it, Tom. I was going to tell him too.
See, I learn something every day.
We all do.
So
I learned about redfin today.
Some dirt trenching, you know, it looks like maybe there might be a little bit of concrete to get to that electrical panel. So you always want to have a safe buffer. So obviously we have the mounting at our ground mount. We have some trenching or possibly some concrete trenching. And let's go ahead and go back to this. So as far as the inverter goes, solar edge or end phase, you know, I've heard different opinions on different topics. I don't know if either of you guys have an opinion here, but I've used both, and both tend to work well for me for ground mounts. Now, usually with big ground mount solar systems, there might be some electrical work. So often these are mansions. You know, if they have a 400 amp panel or 200 amp panel, usually there is either a D rate or a sub panel or possibly an MPU. And on some really nice big mansions, if you're doing a 400 amp main panel upgrade solar ready with today's prices and inflation, you're talking about $7 to $9 grand of electrical work if you have to do a 400 amp. So just make sure to work with a tier 3, watch Paul Leon's electrical training, and anticipate some possible electrical work if you're doing a large ground mount on a big property, which is often most ground mounts. You definitely want to keep into consideration shade, trees, property line, like we just showed. You know, does the homeowner have to remove some trees or bushes before we get there? And I put this down here, but usually you have to have 10 to 15 feet from the property line. So it's not like someone with a regular small backyard, an 1,800 square foot home with a 7,000 square foot lot can put a ground mount. You know, ground mounts are normally for someone that has some land, that has some hillside, their property dips down, or in other states, they just have a large plot of land. So keep in mind that. And then when it comes to what's on the ground here, you can see in this picture, this client has just dirt. What he ended up doing was putting down a black mesh, like the anti-weed black mesh, and then he would put some bark on top of it. Now, why would you do that? Because you don't want the wind blowing up the dust and getting this dirty all the time. So you want to keep that in mind. We don't want weeds growing up too big or bushes growing up. And if it's a lot of dust, they may want to consider putting some bark down or a black mesh around the area just to keep the dust under control. In 2 or 3 of my ground mounts, they'd actually have a water hose nearby. So they connect a hose, and that way they could rinse it if they want to, you know, once every few months. It's not required, but it sure is helpful. And you could pay someone probably $100, $200, and they'll actually come clean it with deionized water and a brush. So these are all great things to keep in mind when someone's asking you about a ground mount. What's the maintenance like? What should I be mindful of? And some cities require a fence. And 1 or 2 of us, I think Cynthia, maybe in Temecula, I learned this near Joshua Tree area, that some of them require a fence. It's rare, but that fence, guys, likely will be $2,800 minimum for a company to go out, install some posts, install the wire so that it can pass inspection. And on our Google Team Drive, under install pics, we have some pictures of some ground mounts to share. And, you know, make sure to bookmark and save these items. If you're building a business, you want to have tons and tons of resources at your fingertips per usual. So let's go through a few pictures here. This one was quite steep. So likely it's going to require some extra labor because of the steepness. And you can see the concrete posts are actually coming out of the ground. So usually they use like a bobcat machine, a little mini earth mover, whatever you call it, or a handheld auger to drill the holes, pour the concrete, set the posts, have to let it dry for a day, and then come back and install the racking. So let's look at some more pictures.
That was the weirdest looking skate ramp I've ever seen.
It's a slip and slide. Here is one that Barry and my brother Chris just did. They're gonna come out with a new video on it. And you can see here, you can see the concrete pillars there that were put into the ground, let dry. You can see that they're still putting some solar panels on the racking railing there.
Jonathan, question about the concrete pillars. Is that included in the ground mount adder cost, or is that an additional cost?
Good question. That is included.
Okay.
We should probably mention too, so for a rooftop system, most of you know that the minimum number of panels is 8. Probably not the case with the ground mount, right? Because you have ground mount, mounting adder cost, you have trenching costs. So I think probably 5 or 6 kilowatts would be the minimum that you would want to shoot for a ground mount. And the further away it is from the interconnection point, probably the bigger it needs to be to make it pencil.
Yep, good point there. And often you can see they trench through the dirt here, and you can actually see the end phase combiner box. So usually the combiner box or the solar edge inverter is either on the racking itself or very close by to the actual solar system. This is that same system. You can see the gentleman working in the combiner box right there, and you get a little better picture of these posts and this, I believe it's like a 2-inch metal pipe that gets latched on, and then you can install the racking and the railing onto that. And you can see they're actually setting up the end phase micro inverters under every solar panel. There is another shot finishing up the racking there. Here's another one in Joshua Tree that I ended up needing the fence for. Turns out Joshua trees are protected, and we needed a $2,800 fence. So that's another one. There's another one. And this is one. This is a 100-panel ground mount in the city of Diamond Bar that I did as well. That's a clean looking one right there. And that's the one in Glendora. There you go. So have that handy, save, bookmark that. Anything else to add, Jared or Tom, on ground mounts to be knowledgeable about?
Yeah, the default that our company uses is a 20-degree pitch for ground mounts. So if you're in, snow country, Colorado, and maybe you want a steeper pitch, whether it has to do with snow or production, you can always put that into your proposal notes when you request it from Solo for that. And, the angle of the panels will change the production of the panels.
Yes, yeah, good point. And the plans will show the depth of the trench, 18 inches minimum for those posts. And you get to see the location. It'll show the property line. Yeah, so all good information here. You can always leave a ticket for your project manager to upload this to your assets, and you can see it looks like a 30-degree tilt here for this one.
Yeah, and I will mention, if you're putting it on a hill, typically the angle of the array is going to match the angle of the hill. That's usually what they do by default.
And we do use a Unirack. That is our go-to mounting railing racking company. In some unique cases in Florida, we might use Iron Ridge, but we are large in a way Unirack components for racking.
Jonathan, Owen has a question. He has his hand raised.
Sure.
I did it the polite way. Thanks. Just because I know everyone's had the question, what if the homeowner wants to do the trenching themselves? Do some counties or cities, when you do trenching, do they have to come and inspect the trenching, or do they just trust that you did that the installer did the trenching correctly?
It's safe to say that. Oh wow. It's safe to say that you have to have the trenching open so the inspector can see it, and then likely they might even want to inspect it after. So there are certain depths required for trenching, to which I don't know the local code, and I'd be surprised if a homeowner knows the local code. If they want to dig at 12, 18 inch, I don't know how far down. They can, and that could help the installers. But I mean, to save a few $100, I would advise against it. But if it's open and then we can get it inspected, then I would just set that expectation.
Got it. I usually tell my clients, call before you dig as a PSA that like PG&E has, for example. You might dig up a gas line and that would be a nightmare. So to know how you guys handled that objection.
Yeah, great point. There's water lines, gas lines, and Cynthia just said sometimes there's septic systems, which you'll need special plans to inspect around that. So unless they're a licensed contractor, I would strongly advise against that.
Typically what I tell people that I work with is, if you're doing a roof mount, add in an extra $500. If you're doing a ground mount, add in an extra $1,000, just as a little padding.
Right. Jordan Shaw, expert on some ground mounts. What's going on?
Well, certainly found out a way not to do it. So I actually, on my 68 panel ground mount that I had done, I had a second PV load center adder that got added. So I had about, like you said, there's a bunch of miscellaneous electrical that got added, about 6,000 worth with the REC price hike that we had, but about just around 4K with just the second PV load center. And I had split it out basically per the client. They wanted to have like one section and another section, but I was really surprised by that adder because I wasn't alerted to it ahead of time. Have you ever had that happen, especially on your 100 panel? I'm just curious.
A PV load center?
Yeah, it said second PV load center was the adder. Yeah, it was like 3,000 and change.
And it was just one large ground mount?
Yeah, it was 68 panels. They were kind of like slightly off. Like looks like it was almost like an extra cost to split them instead of having them in one row, which I kind of felt that was strange, but I wasn't sure if you ever experienced that.
I don't think I have. I'm not sure if anyone else has. What inverter was that? Do you remember?
I actually had 2 Solar Edge inverters on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just curious. We can look at it. I could give you the line by line. I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point, right? Like when we sell custom projects like this, you want to add in some buffer, add in some electrical as mentioned, and really set the expectation. Hey, this is a rough estimate. If specialty components are needed for your system or your city, like I'll let you know, maybe we could work 50-50 or we can work it out. So good reminder, but I have not seen that, Jordan, personally. Yeah, and sometimes 2 conduit runs or 2 sets of wires or sometimes thicker wires, those can definitely add $2 or $3 grand. Mr. Briggs, go for it.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Jonathan. Great information on the, I'm curious on the ground mounts. You might have just actually answered this as far as what you do when the extra adders pop up afterward and how you go about working that out with the customer.
Well, yeah, thank you for asking that. So always add extra trenching, some dirt or some concrete. The mounting adder itself is a pretty good buffer for the concrete posts, extra labor, and some of the steel costs that are involved. And as mentioned, there's always usually electrical, whether it's a D-rate, a main panel, you probably should just add $2 grand in miscellaneous electrical just in case. And then again, really setting the expectation with the homeowner that this is a pretty darn accurate estimate. If there are custom things that come up after the survey, I'll let you know and we will navigate it. It's usually not that much more. So that's how I would do it. And, you know, a week or two after the survey, when the designs are being sent to the customer, really hit the PM with a ticket and say, please break down the adders and the costs of everything that's needed on this job. So that's how I would go about it.
Great, Jonathan. And then question on the adder. So let's say it looked like a few $1,000s for the adder. Let's see, how much was it? Yeah, about $6. Let's say that it costs less than that. They don't need the concrete poles or something of that sort. What would happen to the remainder?
Well, it's 68 cents in California, and usually that is the higher end of what our installers charge. So often my ground mount might actually come back with a $5,500 total cost, and that would get added to the margin. And a lot of people are quick to say, oh, well, I got hit with this $2,000 adder. Well, did you know that the mounting adder actually went down $1,000? So it's always good to compare your solo proposal, what you thought you would make, then look at your COGS and your, you know, the breakdown, because often people just are quick to jump to, I got an adder, but you didn't realize the overall project went down $1,000. So that's what happens though. If there's extra, it would just go to the margin.
Perfect. Good to know. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Let's do one more, Alan, then we'll move on to the next topic.
Hey, John, nice to talk to you. Talk to your brother a bunch.
Awesome.
So the question I have for you is the maximum distance from the box, the main panel. What's the maximum distance you've seen? We're doing some homes in Texas where they have a lot of property. And want to mount these way out in the middle of the field, 500-600 feet away from their home.
So I'll answer this, and it's a rough guess. A lot of you know I keep things simple, and then I set expectations, right? And that's all we should really do. If you overcomplicate it, it's not always needed. But my answer, Alan, would be once you start getting in the 250 feet to 300 feet, that's really the upper limit of when you're going to start to need thicker cables. Anything below 200, 250 feet, you should be okay. But my thing is going to be once you get to 250 or higher, 300 especially, at that point, you will absolutely need thicker cables to avoid the decrease of energy as it gets to the panel. Anything beyond that, there may be a device like we have with batteries where you have to pay for this extra device to beef up the voltage to continue to flow. So that's generally my answer. I'm going to say it's case by case. Anything above 250 feet, pushing 300, just be aware those cables can be $2-3 grand of twice the gauge. And anything farther than that, you may need a special repeating device that I'm not even aware of. So set the expectation.
I'd be curious, David Ringo, and I see you sitting there in Florida with your many years of solar install experience. If you're going to do a ground mount that's 400 or 500 feet away, would you have a preference on solar edge or in phase?
I do in phase myself.
Yeah.
It's easier to run AC wire that distance, and it's cheaper if you ask me. You know, run the AC versus DC, that distance I'm doing that every day. Okay. So I have I'm sitting here thinking, I'm trying to find pictures of it now. We have an 85 kilowatt. It was done before Powur, but we had an 85 kilowatt AC that we did in Clearwater, and it was about a 400 foot run. And we looked at both versions, and it was much easier to do with the AC. Now, the issues we had with that was the monitoring. So when you start doing a long distance, you got to think about monitoring as well, but depending on where you're putting, you know, your boxes and so on. So, but that's what I've always leaned towards in phase a little bit just because of in Florida. I use Solar Edge as well, but I've only got about 400 installs of Solar Edge, and I don't think any of them were ground mounts.
Okay.
They do put the Solar Edge inverters, usually they tie them to the back of the array though. So then you would be running AC up. I know in commercial, they tend to use a string inverter over micros. I don't know. I don't know the perfect answer for that. All right. Alan, did you have one more question on this topic?
Nope, I'm good. Put my hand down.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alan. All right.
Jonathan?
Yes.
forgiveness, Sir Fred from Bay Area. On the earlier part of your presentation, the red dot that you were pointing for the ground mounts, what software, what tool do you use to create that red dot within that area?
I just use my iPhone. And when you take a screenshot, volume up, power button, it lets you draw on the picture. You can also find a very easy Chrome add-on. I'm sure Tom has a fancy drawing tool called like Snippet or something, but a lot of different ways to do that.
Thank you.
Fred sounds like he's in protective services.
Kind of hard to hear. All right. Well, I think that really gave a lot of information around ground mounts. And let's go ahead and move on to the next topic, and we'll stick around for some Q&A and office hours after this as well. So one more topic I'd like to cover, guys. This is another common question. It is around the tax credits. A lot of people specifically ask about the rental properties, investment properties, and roofing. So let's go ahead and tackle the tax credit. The solar federal tax credit with the new Inflation Reduction Act has been increased and extended to 30% to 2026. It's a federal tax credit dollar for dollar. It is not a deduction. So as long as you have a federal tax bill or liability, whether it's withheld throughout the year if you're W-2, whether you're a realtor and you don't pay your taxes quarterly like you should and you owe a whole bunch at the end, whatever it is, you should be able to benefit from a federal tax credit. If someone ultimately can't, they should consider lease or PPA or other options as well. The form is called the 5695 on IRS's website. And the line item 1, qualified solar property electric costs. They write in the dollar amount, 100 grand, multiply by 30%, 30 grand. Pretty straightforward here, and they should be able to calculate their federal tax credit. I won't touch on this more. This is a great link to share with your clients that got installed last year. Most people recognize the act of installation as the qualifying act. Some really detailed people might think that permission to operate is okay, while other CPAs and tax advisors will tell their clients, if you have a signed contract in that year, we can get your tax credit that year, or a substantial amount of work has been done, like a survey or a permit submitted that year. So again, you just give the advice. We're not tax professionals. It'll be up to them when they choose to claim the tax credit. Now, one thing I wanted to cover is, are electrical panels included in a federal tax credit? 99% of the time, 100% of the time, I would say yes. That is something that is required to go solar. Now, investment properties. I answer this the same every single time. Investment properties or rental properties are generally not under the standard tax credit. Primary home, secondary home, or even a vacation home normally qualifies. I have had some clients with a rental property that ask their CPA, and the CPA says, yes, I can claim it for you. I've had other clients that do not take the federal 30% tax credit on their rental investment property. Instead, they depreciate out that asset over a series of years, maybe 25 or 27 years, whatever it is. Again, we're not tax professionals. So that's what my clients have done. Some have got it and some have not. And even if you don't, again, you can depreciate out that asset and recoup some of the costs on the rental property. For rental properties, Mosaic is one of the lenders that are okay with a non-owner occupied loan. Most of our other lenders, Sunlight, Goodleap, are not okay with non-owner occupied financing. So that is regarding rental investment property. And then roofing. Roofing is a very common question asked around tax credits. The verbiage got a little bit more strict with the Inflation Reduction Act. And again, most of my clients will claim the roofing with the solar when they do their taxes. One or two of my clients did a percentage of the roof, the whole home. They did a percentage, which was the roofing underneath the solar. That is the amount that they put into their solar tax form when they typed in total property costs. So again, a lot of my clients do the whole roof. One or two did a percentage of the roofing underneath the solar. And then I think I had one guy that just didn't include the roof whatsoever. So this one is a little bit more complex. They should truly verify with their CPA. If we're giving them one invoice and one contract and one loan or one payment, if they're ever audited, it's a little bit of a cleaner setup because they're getting one invoice for the solar. Now, we're not going to submit the roof to the IRS. We're not going to submit the solar to the IRS. It's literally up to the homeowner to fill out the tax credit and maintain and keep their own records of what they paid for. And again, we are not CPAs. Always, always have your clients double check with a tax professional. But I recommend giving advice, letting them know what others have done, and letting them know a little bit of your knowledge around this. And there is also a video. If you needed, you can go to this handy thing called YouTube. And whatever you want to learn about, there is a nice video here that explains a solar tax credit that I did with a CPA a few years back.
Yeah, and just to reiterate what Brunasso is saying, you guys, is that really it's very important that you guys are not giving absolute tax information. Like when it talk in generalizations, Owen just said in the chat, talking about, like, you could explain what a tax liability is, but beyond that, don't say anything like, oh, you're guaranteed to get this. Oh, absolutely, you can get the tax credit for the roof. Always throw it back onto their CPA and having them check with them. I cannot stress that enough. You don't want to get yourself into some hot water.
I've also heard some new people trying to talk to clients or sell solar say, oh yeah, you're just going to get a check back for this tax credit. You're just going to get a check back. It does not always work like that. Everyone's situation's different. They may owe less. And if they can't benefit from the tax credit in the 1 year, it does roll forward to subsequent years. So it's very important not just to say, oh yeah, you get it back, you get a check. Like, watch the video, do a little explaining, work with your tier 3 mentors to properly answer that.
Yeah, have an understanding of how the tax credit works and explain how it works, but don't give that homeowner specific tax advice for what they will or will not get.
All right, I think we've hammered that.
Absolutely.
You guys all get it. We are not CPAs.
Very good. All right, let's keep it going to the next topic. And again, we'll hang out after for additional conversation and questions. So we're going to try to hit 2 more topics here, new construction, and possibly roll into 2 meters or ADUs as well. You were right, Jarrett. We're quite ambitious for today's training topics.
Yeah, I was almost going to say, if we want to go into Q&A, we could save those 2 topics and not rush them. I mean, we have like 7 minutes till 11. I'm sure there's plenty of time to answer questions on these topics. And then we could save that for next week's training. What do you think?
I don't know. What is the community?
Lorenzo said he agrees. I don't know if he's agreeing to what I just said, but
yeah, maybe we should do that.
Yeah, let's do that. We could talk about. I mean, Jordan posted his picture about the second PV load center and ground mount holes, concrete. We could look at that. If people have any more questions about taxes, I can pretend to be a CPA, just joking. But yeah, we can. But yeah, I mean, we can open it up to Q&A. Like I said, we got like 5-6 minutes until the end of this. Let's not rush those other two topics.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, thank you, Jarrett. So ground mounts, tax credits, and then we're just going to do 20-30 minutes of open office hours. All topics are welcome for the next 10 minutes. So let's touch on ground mounts, tax credits. Next week, guys, as mentioned, we're going to hit new construction, how to get the design plan sets, you know, here, what are some of the requirements for the new construction? And as well, another extremely common question is, what if there's 2 meters? What if they're building an ADU? Are they going to get another meter, or should they keep 1 meter for the property? What is NEMA, net energy metering aggregation? What are some of the legal laws in California on ADUs? So we're going to touch on these topics next time. But let's go ahead and open it up to Q&A.
Yeah, feel free to type your questions in the chat, raise your hand. We'll go through them.
Let me go ahead and stop this recording.